This is you're not going to hear this anywhere else, by the way. Well, you're going to hear about some of the news stories on the finance reports, but not from this thing. This is at truthhurtsnews.com. If you want to see the trail of documents, this is Minnesota Democrats tower over GOP in cash on hand leading into final month of election.
Thanks to Alex Soros.
No. Thanks to a lot of people, right? Yeah, Soros helping them.
Yep.
This is how bad it is. Okay, I'm just going to put it this way. Remember, the Minnesota Democrats have a trifecta: the House, the Senate, and the governorship. Okay, so you would think Republicans. By the way, they've gone so extreme to the far left. You would think Republicans should raise money against this, right? To many of us political observers, it seems like MNGOP Chairman David Ann is purposely running the Republican Party in the ground in Minnesota. Democrats have a state government trifecta and are out fundraising the MNGOP by leaps and bounds. According to the newly released financial reports, the MNGOP has only $38,533 in cash on hand leading into the final month of this important election cycle. Meanwhile, the Democrat State Fund account has a whopping $2.1 million ready to be utilized for mailer staff, door knockers, media buys, etc. to keep the Democrat trifecta in power. In fact, the DFL State Central Committee raised $3 million since June. Han, on the other hand, has only raised $29,000 since June. They literally have no branch of the Minnesota government, and since June, and that includes the state fair, they have only raised $29,000.
That includes the state fair where they were selling all their items. So in other words, that's probably all the money they got from selling shirts, buttons, whatever they were selling at the fair.
Yeah.
And if that's what they raised, they probably lost money on their total,
correct,
the items and the staff and the booth or whatever.
So in other words, when you look at the state accounts of the MNGOP and the DFL, we call it DFL in Minnesota, it is 55-1 favoriting the Democrats. 55-1. That's the advantage.
And then when Republicans, like the HRCC, does have money, what do? They don't spend it against the Democrats. They spend it against Republicans in red district primaries.
Well, they do both, but certainly are doing that. So this is you can look right here at the transaction summary. You can go to cfb.mn.gov and you can look up the reports yourself, but this shows total raised just in their state coffer is $296,000 this year. And they're ending with, and they've blown through more than that. They've actually spent pretty much every dime, so they only have $38,533 left. It appears the majority of Hand's focus for fundraising has been in the MNGOP's federal account, which is money designated for federal offices like the 8 congressional seats and winning the U.S. Senate seat, which is up for grabs. This money could also be used to help Trump win in Minnesota. Despite raising $3 million in individual contributions in that account, the MNGOP enters the final stretch of the election with only $673,767 cash on hand. That's what they have to win 2 competitive CD2 and CD3 races and attempt to beat Senator Amy Klobuchar.
I don't know. I think there's a lot wrong with that last sentence. First of all, I don't think CD2 or CD3 are competitive, but that could be arguable.
Yeah,
but
well, that's what they're spending money on.
But also,
right?
That's not what they have left to beat. That's what they have left to pay their staff. Don't they have like 17 staff or something like that? So all the people, I mean, this 600,000 or whatever, David Hand makes like 10 grand a month or more, 12 grand a month, whatever he makes as his salary, right? And so how many, I mean, he's got more months of salary. They don't have 600,000 left to play in these districts.
Well,
they're not competitive anyway, but you could assume
the staff is going towards that, right?
What's that?
You could make the assumption the staff is going towards that objective.
Well, David Hand doesn't know shit about winning elections, so I fail to see how paying him all that money does anything to win those seats.
Well, let me give you a comparison. Meanwhile, the Democrats have $4.4 million cash on hand, and they've been bringing in $7.5 million in individual contributions, right? So in this case, not as big. It's not a 55-1 ratio, but you got a $4.4 million to $673,000 difference. And I mean, by the way, Amy Klobuchar's campaign fund's very plussed up, and so is what's her name, Angie Craig. The House Republican Campaign Committee, HRCC, is at least more competitive with their counterpart, the DFL House Caucus. And that heads-up comparison, the Democrats have $3.5 million, and the GOP has $1.63 million cash on hand. That's still a 2-to-1 disadvantage for the Republicans. By the way, it's probably still going to be close.
and you say it's not that big, it's not as big of a difference, the 2 million versus 600,000 or whatever, but in a way it kind of is. I mean, it's like if you make 60,000, you make 200,000 a year. Like if you make the 60,000, it all goes to your expenses, your mortgage, your, car payment, your utilities, right? You got nothing. You got make 200,000 a year. Well, you got similar expenses. You might have slightly higher mortgage, slightly higher car payment or whatever, but you got another extra $100,000 to, play around with. So yeah, 600,000 to 2 million. It's like, oh, it's not that far apart. Yeah, no, they have, there's all these fixed expenses that these parties have. And so, I mean, a lot of that goes to fixed expenses.
All right, you got a story here about the HRCC on actionforliberty.com, Jesse. Let's talk about that.
Sure, yeah, go ahead and pull that up there, Dawson. We can discuss this. Nearly $35,000 was spent for unendorsed Rhino incumbents, and there you can see them right there because all three of them were getting plenty of attention. Of course, Rhino Ron Krisha, Brian Johnson, and his name just slipped my mind.
Are you talking about David's?
Yeah, Greg Davids, my bad. Yep. So go ahead and scroll down, Dawson. The first thing I want to point out here, go ahead and show all of those names right there because those are the names of the Republican representatives or candidates who are giving money to the HRCC either before or after the primary when we know the HRCC is using money to spend, using money against endorsed candidates or going, just protecting the incumbents who are in there. Even if these incumbents are doing nothing to help the Republican Party, even if they're doing nothing to help their district, even if they're doing nothing for the conservative movement, all of these people are giving tons of money. So go ahead and scroll down a little bit further there, Dawson, because, yeah, that just shows all those people there. But upon review of the HRCC's Campaign Finance Board September 2024 report, nearly $35,000 was spent against was spent for 3 rhinos and against 3 conservative candidates. So in the
2 of which were endorsed by the party.
Right. In the case of Ron Krisha, that was $16,160.11 spent just on him. So that goes to show that was the closest primary within the entire state for the state house. And the fact that it got that close with just a grassroots patriot running against someone who's got, nearly, got over $16,000 being spent for their behalf. It shows that Diane Webb-Skillings did a very good job and was very competitive in that race, and that Ron Krisha would have stood no chance without the HRCC. Then we can look at Greg Davids, who also barely won his primary, and they spent $3,333.33. And then, of course, Brian Johnson. They spent nearly $15,000 for Brian Johnson, only to lose that primary. Jimmy Gordon is the guy who defeated Brian Johnson. Go ahead and scroll down. It'll be interesting to see how he operates within the legislature, but according to this post, it doesn't seem like he is going to be forgetting about what the HRCC did to him here, because he says in that post, establishment rhino Republicans at the HRCC desperate to retain power. He talks about how he got something in the mail that said that he wasn't a conservative. So that'll be very interesting to see how that ends up working out. One more thing, go ahead and scroll down there, Dawson. The HRCC is also caught, using this money. They say it's for event supplies, but they're going shopping. They're going grocery shopping at Sam's Club. They're going to Total Wine, which doesn't necessarily shock me. I mean, it is unfortunate that a higher level of politicians compared to the general public are alcoholics. Julie Whiteclaw Blaha and Dan Walgamot and that gay Brian Curran, they all know that very well, that politicians are more susceptible to becoming alcoholics. So, and that was just 2 weeks ago, less than 2 weeks ago. The HRCC, after the primary, they're going to Total Wine and buying a ton of booze for themselves and partying it up. I don't know what it was for, but
I don't know, maybe a fundraising event.
Oh yeah, I
mean that's most likely what it was, Jesse.
I mean, they bought it after the primary. It's a little crazy to me. If you have to, get people drunk to be able to donate to you, I mean, you probably don't have that great of a message.
Now I want to play devil's advocate on this one. Jeez, and as we host a party or an event here tonight,
I don't think that when candidates are giving money to the HRCC, or if individuals are giving money to the HRCC, I don't think that they're expecting expecting their money to be wasted on alcohol. I would think that that money should be spent on mailers. I would think that money should be spent on door knockers. I don't think it's needed to booze up politicians. Maybe it's just me.
Well, it's probably to booze up the donors more. Well, obviously the politicians, it's a fringe benefit for them. But no, I mean, I know Jake was going to play devil's advocate. No, they have fundraisers coming up. They have a fundraiser coming up on Summit Avenue here on October 15th, I think it is, and so they'll have a lot of big donors come in, and I think they're asking people to give $500 to the HRCC or $100 to each of different candidates that they're promoting at their event. So I mean.
Well, alcoholics everywhere should know to attend.
Yeah, well, people show up. Yeah, you could have, if there's somebody that's hosting this party. I mean, they could make the host of the party buy the booze. That's another way to do it. But who knows? Maybe the host of the party is giving a ton of money to the HR.